there guys, so this is actually part 2 of my August wrap up of part 2 of 3. If you have not yet seen part 1, I would suggest just pausing this video and going and checking that out and watching that if you want to get kind of the whole scope of all of the books I read in August and my thoughts. Yeah, and then after at the end, you know, you can go ahead and watch part 3. So thanks so much for watching, you guys. This next book, I have a lot to say about this next book. So we have Alice in Zombieland by Gina Showalter. I really like this, surprisingly. I gave this, well, what did I give this? I think I gave this a 3.5. I ended up giving it a 4 at first, and I lowered it down once I kind of thought about it for a while. I enjoyed reading it. So it's not like the best book out there, but it was a fun ride, basically. This book, first off, major false advertising. This has nothing to do with Alice in Wonderland. Like, you read the cover, or you read the title, you look at the cover, you think, oh, it's an Alice in Wonderland retelling. I think it's marketed as a Alice in Wonderland retelling, or at least that's what the publishers want you to believe. My thought, when I picked this book up, was it's going to be Alice goes to Wonderland, but finds zombies. Like, that's literally what I was thinking. It's like, if Alice goes down the hole, the rabbit hole, and then Wonderland is like full of zombies. Like, that's what I was expecting this book to be. No, nothing like that at all. Alice, the things that are comparable to Alice in Wonderland, at least that I can kind of find, like, I'm not the biggest Alice in Wonderland fan, so there may be more subtle nuances that were like Easter eggs that I didn't pick up on. But as far as like broad strokes, the only things that are comparable is the main character's name is Alice, and there's a white rabbit like cloud that she keeps seeing. Not a physical bunny, it's a cloud, and it's shaped like a bunny, a white bunny. So yeah, that's it. Those are the only things. And then the title headers are similar. Let me see if I can find the chapter. Or chapter header, not a title header. Like, advice from a dying caterpillar, which there was no caterpillar in this book, so it's like, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know, I feel like they were really, what bloody nonsense. I feel like they were really trying to play up the Alice in Wonderland thing off with her head. But like, it's not at all. Like, I don't think they should have put that in here at all, because it doesn't, I mean, it really makes you think that she's gonna go into like this magical world and fight zombies, but no, it's not. After getting over that, once I realized this is totally not a retelling at all, at least that I know of, I did enjoy it. This is written in 2012, which doesn't seem like that long ago, but in reality, that was 10 years ago. Wow. So it's very tropey, very YA tropey. Again, I'm not discounting the book for that, because I know that it's YA. I'm not a teenager. I'm not the target audience. And it was written 10 years ago. And this was kind of the type of book that was written. So while I personally was like, cringy on some of the things, I'm not going to rate the book lower because of that. Because again, like, I'm not the target audience for this book. This was very tropey in the sense that it had like, man, let's see. There was like the bad boy, like the good girl meets the bad boy, and like he's all mysterious and secretive, and she's trying to figure out his secret, and she has like the witty sidekick or best friend. And then there was the whole thing, I hate this trope so much, of let me push you away to save you from to save you from myself. I have to push you away because being with me is dangerous, and I'm not giving you the choice to decide. I'm going to make a decision for you. That bothers me so much, and that was definitely in this book. So this book starts out with Alice, and basically something really tragic happened in her life. So before, you kind of like have almost like a journal entry of like, this is what happened, like this is my life now, and then you kind of go back in time and talks about how this girl Alice, and she has a mother, a father, and a younger sister. Well, her father is, everyone thinks is crazy because he sees these monsters, and these monsters only come out at night, and so the girls their whole lives have never been able to leave the house after dark. The house is like fortified with like all of these like contraptions, and he's completely just, they think he's a crazy person that believes in these invisible monsters that no one else has ever seen. I guess I can tell you what happened because it's not really a spoiler. There was a car crash, and basically her entire family was killed. And so during this event, it like triggered something in her brain, and when this happened, she started seeing the monsters. And she started realizing, like, oh, my dad, he was not crazy. Like, he actually saw these things. And so she is, like, now on this mission to find out the truth about these monsters and fight back against the regime. No, fight against the monsters, avenge her family, find out about, like, who she is and why she is able to see these monsters. There were a few things in this book that I was reading them, I was like shocked because I think, well, okay, I don't think this is a Christian book by any means, but I think the author might be a Christian. Because, well, at least when she's writing this, like, okay, let me rephrase. There was a certain part, like, they're talking about God a little bit, and like, there's other books that are non-Christian books that talk about God, right? But they kind of talked about praying and God and all that. And then there's also when Alice was like listening to her iPod or something, the bands that it said that she was listening to was Skillet and Red. And I was like, wait a second, those are Christian rock bands. And also they were extremely popular in 2012. But I mean, Skillet, I think a lot of people know about Skillet, but Red, I don't know if a lot of people who don't listen to Christian music know about them. So it's like, okay, that's a little, like, strange. Like, I would have thought that she would have picked more mainstream bands, you know. But then there was other things in here that talked about, like, your spirit and how they're fighting in the spirit, and these evils are unseen to to normal humans, so kind of like compared to, like, the demons and stuff like that. And so it's had a lot of Christian aspects in this book, which I was like, that's really cool. I really like that about this book. Unfortunately, I have heard that I've heard that in book 3, it just goes majorly downhill. So apparently Gina Showalter used to write, like, erotica, romance. She became a Christian, wrote some books that were, like, completely not that, obviously, because she felt that was not appropriate for her as a Christian to be writing about. But then in book 3, I guess there's a pretty intense sex scene between the characters. And they're teenagers, y'all, like 18, 16 years old. So I personally don't like sex in my books. That's just a personal preference. Whatever. Really don't like, okay, you know what? Teenagers are having sex. Yes, they are. But we don't need to talk about that in our books. Or do we need to describe that? And it just seems wrong to me. And a lot of people I heard were like, yeah, it basically turns into, like, a weird erotic storyline. Which I was totally bummed by, because I'm like, I would like to continue this, but I'm not going to continue this series if that's the case. So I don't know if the author is no longer Christian or what, but I just was like, found it quite interesting that there were a lot of Christian ideas or philosophy type stuff in this book while not overtly Christian. But again, like I said, very tropey. Alice, like, meets the bad boy and she starts hanging out with the wrong crowd and bad things start happening, but it's like for the right reasons, you know. Yeah, it was fun. It really reminded me of, you know, when I was back in high school, I read these type of books, these type of really super tropey YA books, like you think like Twilight and stuff, right? I really loved those back then, so it's a little bit of a nostalgia feel for me. If you're going to this book because of the Alice in Wonderland aspect, I would say don't even bother. Just don't bother. There's really no point to it. There are zombies, obviously, but the zombies are a bit different than what you would normally think zombies are. And then it's very much like the beautiful, you know, she's so beautiful and they can't keep her eyes off her and all of this kind of stuff. And it was just, like, really annoying to me. But I would classify this book as contemporary with a little bit of magical realism. Not a fantasy, not a paranormal per se. I guess it would be considered paranormal, but it's very contemporary. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this. It was a wild ride, a weird ride. It kept me engaged though. Like, I read it in like a day and a half because I'm like, I need to know what happens, but not at all what I was expecting in any way, shape, or form. And I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it unless you are a really big fan of contemporary 2012 paranormal maybe-ish books. YA books. After that, fantasy. I have a fantasy. So I did actually reread this, Mark of the Raven. I read Mark of the Raven. What's book 2? I always forget what book 2 is called. I read book 2, and then I did read book 3, which is Cry of the Raven. Yeah, so I don't know what book 2 is called, but something with Raven. But this book is a Christian fantasy. I don't know if this is considered YA or adult. I mean, it's definitely either way, like, YA could totally read this book. The characters are a bit older. Like, they're definitely in, like, 18 to, like, 25, I think. So maybe it is adult or new adult, per se. This is a fantasy story about these kingdoms. So there's, like, these different kingdoms that have the different lords and ladies of their realms. And they exist, like, back in the day, there was this huge fight against the Empire. And the House Ravenwood fell. And nobody believes that the Ravenwood house still has their power. So all of these kingdoms, all of these lands, each head family has a power. So you have like someone that controls water, someone that controls light, someone that rides, like they have the power of courage and they can ride dragons. And then you have like wisdom. Well, the power that the Ravenwoods had was dreamwalking, where basically they can go into someone's dream. And so it starts out with like, no one in this world believes that they still do. And so the Dreamwalkers, the Ravenwood, ladies of Ravenwood, Lady Ravenwood and her daughters, they are in secret and they use this power, like they're trying to secretly become powerful again and become the most powerful house in the realm. And Selena, the daughter, the older daughter, comes into her power and she's really feeling like this is not what I want my power for, because her mom is like really hard and dark and like we must destroy and kill and hurt these people in their dreams. So like they do nightmares and they worship the Dark Lady. Whereas the other houses, or some of the other houses, worship the light, which I'm sure you can kind of get an idea for that. It's like the devil and the Lord. And so it's just kind of Selena trying to figure out who she is, where her alliances lie. And then they have the threat of the Empire is coming upon their shores. And so they have to band together with the other houses to try and keep the Empire out. That's kind of the gist of book 1. And then, of course, as the series goes on, there's more character development, there's more things that happen, there's more excitement, there's revenge, there's treachery, all sorts of like political. So it's very much political fantasy. I truly love these books. It was so fun. The world, I think, was developed nicely. This is not high fantasy by any means, I wouldn't say. But I do really think that everything was flushed out. I didn't have any problems with the storylines. I really felt for the main characters. You deal with grief in these books. You definitely deal with that. You deal with like family betrayal, or like how do you become your authentic self while not necessarily like it's the opposite of what your family believes or what your family wants for you. And then of course you have the struggle between the darkness and the light, as in, the Christian books would. I really highly recommend this if you like fantasy. It's not like a over the top Christian, slap you in the face about God. I would definitely say very similar in the sense of like Chronicles of Narnia is, in the sense of how much is talked about the good and the bad, and how the light and stuff is related to the Lord was not ever saying that. So I think even if you're not religious, if you like fantasy, you would still really like these books. I love the main characters. I very much loved the romance in here. I loved the Selena, her like knowing her power and coming to her true power and discovering who she is and helping others like, with her gift. And it was so beautiful to see that growth in this character throughout the 3 books. Because it takes place within a couple years, I think, or a year or so between book 1 to book 3. And I think that the ending was very well done. I really liked the conclusion of these series. Overall, I think the series is like a 4.5. Just really, really enjoyable. And again, if you like kind of political intrigue, light fantasy, I would definitely check these out. Oh my gosh, you're being a crazy. You're being a crazy. Okay, now we're getting to the book that I DNF'd. So, within this bind up, you have The Death of David Pickett. I think I talked about this in a vlog. I have not edited or posted it yet, obviously. But I will be doing that soon. I kind of was vlogging my experience reading this book. So if you do want to know more like my day of like thoughts, like what's the word I'm looking for? If you want to know like my in the moment thoughts on these books, I will hopefully be posting a vlog very soon of me talking about that. But The Death of David Pickett. I DNF'd this one, and it's literally, you guys, like not even 80 pages long, I don't think. Like it's tiny. I read maybe the first 20 pages, not even 20 pages. The first like 10 pages, and I DNF'd it. I just couldn't do it. Hey, no, we're not doing that. So basically in this story, it's about to me it felt very pro-anarchy, let's like down with the man, pro like Antifa kind of situation is really what I felt this was saying. Because it's very much like these anti-government people are going, and this guy died, and he's like this huge person in the anti-government movement. Not that I'm like pro-government and pro all this crap that they're doing, but I'm also not a fascist. And this was very much like fascist feeling. The main dude that dies, like I said, he's like one of the leaders in one of these groups, and these people basically get together and we're like, he must have been murdered by the government. We don't know how or who, but the government must have done it, and so we're gonna get together and we're gonna literally destroy our city. We're gonna riot. We're gonna kill police. We're gonna do all of these bad things. And I'm like, no, I don't need to be reading about this. For one, I disagree. For two, this kind of stuff is still happening in my city. In Portland during 2020, Portland was one of, I know not the worst, it wasn't the worst, but it was really, really bad for riots, really bad for just a lot of awful stuff happened in my city, a lot of destruction, a lot of hate, a lot of, not good stuff. And so I'm like, I don't need a reminder of this. I don't need to relive it because I already have been living it the past 3 years. So no, thank you. So yeah, that's why I DNF'd it. Like I said, I put more in my my vlog, you'll see. But then I read Dusted by Stars, and this is a short story, a fantasy short story. At first, it took me like a few pages to get into this because at first I feel like the author is over describing everything. Like they're trying to be, and now again, I'm not a sci-fi reader. So maybe this is normal for sci-fi. So if that is, I apologize. This is just my personal experience of not reading very many sci-fis at all. This is my take on this. I felt the author was just over-explaining things. And very much talked about, same with the other book, this author must really like beer. Because very much talked about like all the different beers that they're drinking and like in detail. And I'm like, I don't need to know. Like, it doesn't do anything to the story. No. Do not eat my books. So yeah, I was just feeling like the author was being like, look at all the sci-fi type words I can put in here. And it just felt convoluted and like too much. Like a whole paragraph could have been like to describe this person's walk from the ship to like the bar. Could have just been like the sky was rusty colored or something, but they had to go through all this random things. And I'm like, I don't understand a word that you're saying. I don't like what? I don't get it. And it seemed overkill to me. And like, it's such a short little book. I'm like, it could have been like a chapter or two shorter, I think. And again, maybe this is just normal for this genre. So I don't want to like talk too harshly about it because I'm not a sci-fi reader. So I don't know. But it was almost like the reader was expected to know what certain terms meant or certain words meant. And again, maybe these are terms that are widely used in sci-fi. I don't know. but I felt a little lost and a little bit like I had to like skip a lot of words. And I still got the gist of what was going on, but I had to kind of skip over it a little bit and be like, I have no idea what that is. I don't know ship lingo, like spaceship lingo. I think I gave this a 3. Well, like, it was enjoyable though. Like, once I got into the story, I actually really liked it. It's basically about this woman who is like a transport, like she deals with like not necessarily black market stuff, but she'll kind of transport anything that is given to her. And she's tasked with transporting this like rare, valuable, or not, it's supposedly not valuable, but she's tasked with transporting this rare artifact from Earth. It's like she's from Mars, and it's definitely like a futuristic planet situation. It says it's a space opera with a touch of fantasy. I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it. But basically, as she's trying to deliver this item to where it's supposed to go, a lot of really bad stuff starts happening. People try to attack her. Apparently, everyone is after this item, even though she was told that no one wants it. So she's kind of like, what the heck, person who hired me? And they kind of go on this little adventure with, she ends up kind of hiring a little sidekick, and she has like an AI machine that kind of help her out. And it's just kind of weird, but like, it was fun though. It was definitely fun. Once I got into the story, once I could kind of overlook the crazy talk about over-explaining things, I did enjoy it. So I would recommend it if you are a fan. Well, I say that not knowing if it's a good sci-fi or not. I personally liked it, so I'll just go with that. Okay, thanks so much for watching, y'all. Don't forget, this is the end of part 2. There is a 3rd part to this video, so I would suggest, if you want, go ahead and link or check out the description down below, because I put the 3rd part down there. If you want to know the rest of my thoughts for the month, go check out that video. Thanks for watching, guys.